Okay, so the final assignment in Exercise, Health and Lifestyle Unit 7. We're sort of rounding off all the information you've learnt about in Assignment 1, so the kind of lifestyle factors that influence people's health and well-being. You've gathered information from your client via a lifestyle questionnaire and identified the strengths and weaknesses of their lifestyle, and you've recommended some strategies to try to support them and improve their lifestyle in Assignment 3. So Assignment 4 now asks you to produce a 6-week physical activity program for your client. So this is specifically looking at physical activity rather than too many of the other types of lifestyle factors. So the unit spec very clearly says be able to plan a health-related physical activity program, and the fact that it said health-related specifically is really relevant because we're not necessarily trying to improve our clients' performance in a particular sport. We're trying to improve their health, so it's important that your planning and your program relates to health benefits. So again, the process will be checking that you have information appropriate to your client, so you know the sorts of things that they want to get or they need from this program. You're going to set some goals. You're going to make sure that you show that you can apply principles of training, and that the activities you recommend and plan for are appropriate to them in terms of health and their capability, and obviously that the activity has the right exercise intensity in order to improve health. There's one assessment criteria for this, so it's purely P4, being able to plan this 6-week activity program for your client. And the scenario: as a personal trainer, your selected client requires you to produce an appropriate health-related physical activity program to modify unhealthy behaviours and to ensure they have a balanced, active, healthy lifestyle. So 6-week activity program. So you may have a lot of the information that's relevant in terms of helping you plan an appropriate program. You may need to collect some other bits of information at this point, but essentially you want to know what their goals are. You obviously should by this point know about their lifestyle, their medical history, their physical activity history, how they feel about activity. So you might have people who are very reluctant or unconfident in exercising, who aren't very motivated, and if there are any barriers to exercising, and your program will need to account for all of this information. When you goal set, you may be familiar with the SMART target acronym, and there are slight variations in what the letters stand for, but your targets that you set for and / with your client should be specific, so very defined. They should be measurable so that you can check if there has been progress or not. This says assignable, as in it should be assigned to a particular client, but often the A stands for achievable, so you want them to be realistic and achievable for your client, not so out of reach that they get demoralized by week 2. And obviously should be time-based. Well, we're specifying this program is going to be 6 weeks long. So I imagine many of you are familiar with principles of training. We use an acronym called Testing Mrs. VOP to help remember, and I'll show you that in a moment. But when you're designing your activities, you obviously want to gradually challenge your client a little bit harder each week, so that hopefully all their body systems will adapt and will improve, and this will make them healthier. So you may have heard of the RPE scale. You might not. You may have heard of a talk test. So the talk test is pretty straightforward. It's very much considered moderate level of activity if you can chat a little bit whilst you're exercising. If you're so out of breath that you can't talk, your client's working quite hard and is likely to be working anaerobically. So if they can chat reasonably comfortably, then that's probably a good indication of an appropriate intensity. Or there's also the RPE scale. Borg's RPE scale was rated 0 to 20, where 20 is incredibly hard, I can't possibly go on, and obviously the lower the number value you give, it's your perception, your subjective perception of how hard you think you're working. So your client would say this is level 10 if they found the activity very much in the middle, very moderate. So RPE and the talk test are ways of monitoring intensity. So here's the acronym then, Testing Mrs. VOP. Obviously there might be some testing in your program because you want to know the baseline starting point of your client's physical fitness levels, and you might do this, you know, a couple of weeks or once or twice throughout the program, but you'd almost definitely do it at the end as well, because you want to know if your program's had any effect and if they've actually improved. So testing's pretty central to any program when you're looking for change. Obviously things need to be done in moderation. You probably wouldn't start week 1 with your client training 7 days a week. Moderation is really important in terms of confidence and in terms of not overdoing things too early. You want to gently introduce them to activity, particularly if they've been a sedentary person, so they've been a non-exerciser in the past. Reversibility refers to if you stop doing activity, you lose it. So if they give up after 2 weeks, they will lose any benefit they may have gained. Being specific, so if we want to improve general health, then we probably want to do some cardiovascular activity and some strength training activity specific to big muscle groups. So don't just do any old activity. It's got to be an activity which is suited to the outcome that you want. Doing a bit of variety matters to keep people motivated or to give people fun, and that will really help with motivation. In order to gradually work your client harder through the 6 weeks, you progressively overload what they do. So you progressively maybe work them a little bit more intensely, or maybe add a session so it becomes slightly more frequently after a couple of weeks, or you work for a slightly longer time, or as I said, the activity could be varied. So we want to apply the FIT principle to progressively overloading what your client does week to week. Periodization is a little bit less relevant, other than it refers to if you were a sports person, if it's pre-season, competitive season, or post-season, or you know what sort of training phase you're in or competitive phase you're in. So that's perhaps a little bit less relevant to our health-related client. Obviously, choose activities that are suitable for improving general health. But you've also got to choose activities that your client can do, is willing to try to do, or will enjoy. So, you know, these walking, cycling, swimming, jogging, hiking are all kind of really accessible activities which could have really big health benefits. So, all you need to do then is use all your knowledge, or your fitness knowledge, or your client knowledge to prepare a 6-week health-related physical activity program for your client, making sure that you consider these factors down here that we've learnt about in the past couple of assignments. So just to finally show you the assignment brief that you'll write your 6-week program in. So we're hoping that we make a big change in your client's life and that they become more active and healthy throughout. So it's just one criteria, P4, and then essentially you write your week by week program in these sections here. So it's kind of all laid out for you, and you just need to type in there and complete the work.